In the Champions League semi-final, Arsenal hosted PSG, and if that goal they conceded felt familiar, you're not alone. It was almost a carbon copy of what we saw in the round of 16, when Liverpool faced PSG and got punished in nearly the same way. Both goals came from PSG's slick, calculated response to high pressing. Let's start with the Arsenal vs PSG match. At that moment, PSG were building up with a back three. As the ball reached left-back Nuno Mendes, we hit a classic pressing trigger, ball to the fullback. Right on cue, Arsenal stepped up the press, swarming high up the pitch to force a turnover. Now here's where it gets interesting. Nuno Mendes had 4 passing options in front of him. First, he could play it short to Kvaratskhelia, who had dropped deep and pulled Arsenal's fullback with him. Second, there was the lofted ball into space for Fabián Ruiz, trying to exploit the gap behind that same fullback. Third, he had Vitinha available in midfield, but again, all 3 options were tightly tracked by Arsenal players. With everyone else locked down, Ousmane Dembélé quietly dropped deeper, away from the chaos, giving Nuno Mendes a 4th passing lane that Arsenal completely missed. Let's take a closer look at why Dembélé was able to receive the ball so comfortably in that number 10 space. First, it was Vitinha who pulled a defender out and opened up the midfield lane. Second, PSG's front line stayed high and kept Arsenal's backline pinned, especially the centre-backs. That pressure meant they couldn't just charge out to shut down Dembélé aggressively when he dropped into that false 9 role. And third, PSG had players making late runs, like Fabián Ruiz, constantly pulling defenders out of position and keeping them guessing. And those 3 things really sum up the essence of PSG's false 9 system. Put simply, for it to work, someone else has to take on the striker's job, so the false 9 can drop deep and influence the game. Now, let's rewind to that Liverpool vs PSG matchup. At that moment, PSG were building up with a back 3. As the ball reached left-back Nuno Mendes, the trigger was pulled, that classic pressing cue, ball to the fullback. Liverpool immediately ramped up the press, trying to trap PSG down the flank and force a mistake. But PSG weren't standing still. As Nuno Mendes received the ball, his teammates gave him 3 passing options. First, he could go short to the dropping winger, Kvaratskhelia, but Liverpool's fullback was tight on him. Second, there was the option of a lofted pass in behind for Vitinha, who was making a smart run into the space behind the fullback. But even that wasn't easy. Liverpool's midfielder was tracking back, and the centre-back was already shifting over to cover. The third option? That was the clever one. Ousmane Dembélé dropped into the gap between Liverpool's midfield and backline. Nuno Mendes spotted it, slipped the pass in, and just like that, PSG broke the press. With time and space, Dembélé had the perfect angle to play the next ball forward. The reason Dembélé was able to receive the ball in that number 10 space is pretty much the same as we've seen before, his teammates dropping deep, pinning the backline, and making well-timed runs.